Hey, it's Jeff, and today we are going to go through the care guide for mushroom corals. Overall, mushrooms are considered very easy coral to take care of in a tank. You find them in beginner tanks all the way up to advanced tanks. They come in many different styles, colors, variations, shape patterns, and overall, when it comes to their care, they are considered a very easy coral to take care of. They're very forgiving to swings potentially in parameters, negligence when it comes to keeping up with the tank and the care for it. They can be some of the most forgiving corals. They are from the soft coral family. They don't have that typical skeleton, hard skeleton structure that you would see in LPS and SPS corals. So from my personal standpoint, I've had mushrooms in each of the tanks that I've had. I went through a tank crash many years ago, and I had everything from SPS, LPS, soft coral. The last coral standing, the one that made it through everything, was a mushroom. It was actually original bounce mushroom. If we go next to the lighting for mushrooms, they like low light. They do not want to be put high in the tank. They do not want to be blasted with light. Key sign that you might be giving it too much light would be if they start to shrivel up or retract, or even if they're smaller in size than what they typically are when they're open. Those are all signs that they potentially are getting too much light and maybe too much flow, but lighting would be the first thing that I would take a look at on that. So I would recommend always to keep them on the lower rock work, or some like to keep them on frag plugs or discs on the sand bed. Either one of those is fine, but definitely not too high in the tank. I would always start out, assuming it's attached to something, I would start it off on the sand bed or the lower rock work. I'm probably a big fan of putting them on the sand bed because then I can pick and choose in the tank once it's settled in where I ultimately would like to place it. If I glue it to a rock, then I'm kind of stuck to that. So I like to start them off in the sand bed and then work from there over a few weeks once it's been in the tank for a while. When it comes to feeding, we feed all of the mushrooms that we have here in the Whitland Aquatics aquaculture facility Benepets, and it gets live phyto as well in each of the tanks. Mushrooms don't have the large mouth structures that you find in some of the other corals, such as LPS. They're not going to want big pellets. They're not going to want anything of bigger size because, again, they're going to have to digest it in the small mouth that you see in the middle of the coral. So we try to mix up the Benepets and take a turkey baster and, again, slowly baste them into the mouth of the coral and give them some time to take in that feeding response, where most of them will close up and try to capture that food. When it comes to flow, mushrooms like little to no flow. They do not want to be blasted. Sometimes if they're hit with too much flow, they will detach from whatever they're on. Again, they are a soft coral. They have what I like to call a foot, similar to what you would see rock anemone and other types of anemone, where if it's not attached to something, it can wander. It can so-called walk throughout the tank to other places, or sometimes it can float around and get lost. So we like to make sure that it doesn't get blasted with too much flow, but just enough to make sure that it clears itself of any detritus or waste that may settle on the polyp of the mushroom. As far as aggressiveness, it is not known as an aggressive coral by nature. It can get stung by other stuff, so you want to definitely make sure that it's out of harm's way of anything that might have sweeper tentacles, but it's not going to be a coral that is going to necessarily search and destroy something that's surrounding it. They will propagate themselves in a tank. Once they're settled in and once they're growing, you'll notice all of a sudden that on the underside of the mushroom, or potentially next to the mushroom, if it's kind of moved in one direction or another, a small baby will start to form. What's really neat about that, unless it's, let's just say, a one color mushroom. If it's a green mushroom, the baby's probably going to be green. But as you get into some of the more expensive mushrooms and those that have really crazy patterns to them, it's a wild card as far as what the patterns and what the coloration will turn out to be in the baby version of it. So that's one thing that makes a mushroom a really attractive coral that is very popular in the hobby, is as they propagate, you don't always know what the baby is going to be put out as far as color pattern and just overall look to it. So very popular within the hobby. A secret tip that I would say with mushrooms is Not all of them will easily propagate on their own. Some of them, for us personally at least, like the bounce mushroom, they can put off babies. It can definitely happen, but for us, we actually propagate those ourselves by using a razor blade and cutting the mushroom. As long as you're getting a piece of the mouth in the cut, we've had great success doing that. And so again, a secret tip is if you have a mushroom, if you're experienced within the hobby and you're wanting to try to potentially make multiples of it, that is what we use, is a sharp razor blade, since again it's a soft coral and doesn't have that hard skeleton. So the only thing at that point then is making sure that you have some way to keep it secured and it doesn't, again, walk or float off throughout the tank. So again, overall, really exciting, easy coral to take care of and very popular here within the hobby.